Today I'm going to try to take the prop off and replace the seals in the lower unit. Lower unit oil started leaking out around the prop right here, and there probably some type of fishing line maybe wrapped around there and damaged some of the seals inside there. So I ordered some seals and we're going to try to replace it. I've never done this before. A marine dealership said I have to have a special tool, but I got some a little seal puller and a couple other things, so we're going to try this out. I ordered or downloaded this diagram from marineengine.com, and I ordered some seals from them as well. So I got this seal, and my engine is a little 25 horsepower Mercury, and I got an O-ring, so we'll see how this goes. Alright, so I'm kind of holding the phone and trying to show you this at the same time. There was a couple of nuts on here, so I just put a wrench on there and then another wrench, and then I was able to twist it and then screw it. We'll go to the next one. Alright, this other one, I was able just to hold the prop and it'll unscrew like this. Actually, this nut is plastic, which is crazy. I didn't realize that would be plastic. So you have a retaining nut here that's metal to a plastic nut that holds the prop on. Kind of crazy. Anyways, you can kind of see some of the lower unit oil that had come out. Pretty dirty too, huh? The next is, looks like this, like a washer, and I just got a screwdriver and kind of loosen it up a little bit, and it pulls right off like that. Alright, actually this is just like what this diagram shows. This section right here is the carrier assembly, and this is the plate, and there's an O-ring behind the plate. This is the first seal you see, which is right in there, and that doesn't look bad. It looks fine. I don't know, the lower unit oil leaked out, so I don't know if that's leaking or not, but the best way to do that is do a pressure test, and I don't really have the equipment to do that now. So I'm going to take this plate off. There's 3 little bolts back there. I'll take this plate off and check out the O-ring back behind that plate and see what it looks like. Alright, I unscrewed this thing and this is what came out. Lower unit actually looks really good in there. All the gears look good. I forgot my pan, so I thought it was drained, but evidently there's quite a bit more in there than I thought there was. So I'm going to take this thing apart, see if I can get to the seals. Yes, it is on a frying pan. I just grabbed something that I had out in the garage, and while I had a frying pan in the garage, I was actually going to throw it away and scrap it. So, actually scrap it at a scrapyard. Anyways, I grabbed this here, I took this off, it fit on like this, I slid this off the shaft, and as you can see, this comes off, and then here is a O-ring on here, and I got a new O-ring that fits on there, and there's 2 seals right in here. So I'm going to try to get these out now. So definitely going to replace this O-ring. It's kind of almost squared off where the new O-ring is actually round. So, but I don't see any tears or any fishing line or anything on it. So we'll see. Alright, as you can see, there is the top seal. And there's another seal right in between there. Looks like some grease is in there, but there's 2 seals. It's got greases in between the 2 seals. It looks kind of rough around the edges here. So what I'm going to do is I have this seal puller from Harbor Freight, and I'm going to try to get in there with that and pull that seal out. Alright, we got the first one out. My dad had to help me. We used the seal puller and basically went around being careful not to touch the sides here. So we just basically used that sealer right on the lip. I held it and held the sealer in place while my dad hit the sealer with a hammer. I'm sorry, seal puller with a hammer to pull it out, and we just kind of worked it around, and finally at the very end we had to use a little screwdriver, and then I held the screwdriver and my dad hit with the hammer to knock it out. So that's the first seal. There's some seal grease in there. And then that looks like the second seal, and it's facing the opposite direction. Actually, the same direction. See? So, anyways, we'll get to that one next. Alright, I got this inner seal out. It was inside there, and this was my, you can see my grandpa's name. This is grandpa's punch, go long punch. And what I did was I flipped it over, and be careful, I was careful not to hit the inside, and I put it inside there and hammered it out, rotated around, hammered, rotated around, hammered, rotated around, and popped it out. So that seal came out. Alright, I cleaned it up inside there, and now I'm going to put this first seal on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this Super Lube synthetic grease. It's basically a silicone grease. That's what it is. So we're going to try that and see how that goes. Put a little silicone grease in that seal, and I have a 5/16 socket that actually fits right on top perfectly, and then I'm going to hammer that down and try to get it flush. Alright, after the 5/16 I actually followed back up with 13/16 and made sure that it was even, because there's a little rim inside there and I wasn't sure. Didn't look like it was actually hitting that rim, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I did a little bit smaller socket to make sure it's leveled off. Now we got the other seal to install. Alright, it had grease in between these two seals, so I went ahead and put some extra silicone grease in. I'm taking this seal, I'm going to plop it right on top, level it up, and then get the 5/16 socket and then hammer it down evenly. Before I put this new O-ring in, I am going to put some of the silicone grease, a light coat of it, on the O-ring, and then we'll put it all back together. Alright, I inserted the shaft back in, and I twisted it as far as it'll go, and I'm going to use my hammer and stick method to tighten it back up. I'll put a hammer here and my stick and lightly tap it to tighten it up a little bit. And then we'll put this plate back on. Alright, I used that wood block and I just tapped it all the way around until it stopped. Couldn't go anymore. One other note is that make sure that you clean out the this little area here and around the seal, the little pieces of wood, because I noticed I had little pieces of wood chipping off of my block, as you can see, kind of chipping off at the edge. So anyways, make sure you clean it off. And I also found that I didn't put the O-ring in yet because it was kind of moving around, flopping around, so it was getting little wood chips on it, so I took it off. I'm going to coat it with silicone grease and then put it right around this little area here. Alright, I got the rubber seal back on. Now I'm going to put the plate and line these bolt holes up with those bolt holes in there. As you can see, I got my socket in there, and there's 3 little bolts. Make sure you tighten them down evenly and not all at once on one side, so tighten down a little at a time on each one. Make sure you get that in there even. Alright, I got the bolts tightened up, and this part goes on next. I'm going to put some silicone grease in this part as well. It goes in like this. Alright, got that in there, and next is going to be the prop shaft. Put a little silicone grease in there. Install the prop shaft, and we have the plastic retaining nut and then the metal retaining nut. Alright, I got both the retaining, this is the plastic retaining nut and this is the metal retaining nut. Tighten that down so everything's all back together. Now I just got to fill the lower unit with lower unit oil.